mercy of the Supreme Lord through the mercy of the bona fide spiritual master. A devotee who has been blessed by his guru with spiritual knowledge becomes qualified to directly engage in the mission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada always emphasized that service to the spiritual master in separation, pushing on the mission of the Guru, pushing on the mission of the Guru, is the highest form of devotional service. The word paricharet in this word indicates waiting upon one's master by rendering personal service. In other words, one who has not clearly realized the teachings of his spiritual master should remain very close to the Guru to avoid falling down into illusion. But one who has acquired realized knowledge by the mercy of his spiritual master may expand the spiritual master's mission by traveling around the world to preach Krishna consciousness. Text number 40 and 41. One who has not controlled the 6 forms of illusion, such as lust, anger, greed, excitement, false pride, and intoxication. Let me read that again. One who has not conquered the 6 forms of illusion, namely lust, anger, greed, excitement, false pride, and intoxication, whose intelligence, the leader of the senses, is extremely attached to material things, who is bereft of knowledge and detachment, who adopts the sannyasa order of life to make a living, who denies the worshipable demigod, his own self, and the Supreme Lord within himself, thus ruining all religious principles, and who is still infected by material contamination, is deviated and lost both in this life and the next. Oh, let me read that again. One who has not controlled the 6 forms of illusion, lust, anger, greed, excitement, false pride, and intoxication, whose intelligence, the leader of the senses, is extremely attached to material things, who is bereft of knowledge and detachment, who adopts the sannyasa order of life to make a living, who denies the worship of all demigods, his own self, and the Supreme Lord within himself, thus ruining all religious principles, and who is still infected by material contamination, is deviated and lost both in this life and the next. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Lord Krishna here condemns bogus personalities who adopt the sannyasa order of life for sense gratification while still maintaining all of the symptoms of gross illusion. A false show of sannyasa is never accepted by intelligent followers of Vedic principles. So-called sannyasis who ruin all Vedic rituals, all Vedic religious principles sometimes become famous among foolish people, but they are simply cheating themselves and their followers. These charlatan sannyasis are never actually engaged in the loving devotional service of Lord Krishna. Wow, Prabhupada knows everything. 642. The main religious duties of a sannyasi are equanimity, being equal to everyone, and non-violence. Whereas for the Vanaprastha, austerity and philosophical understanding of the difference between the body and soul are prominent. The main duties of a householder are to give shelter to all living entities and perform sacrifices, and the brahmachari is mainly engaged in serving the spiritual master. And the brahmachari is mainly engaged in serving the spiritual master. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The brahmachari lives in the ashrama of the spiritual master and personally assists the acharya. Householders generally are entrusted with the performance of sacrifice and deity worship and should provide maintenance for all living entities. The Vanaprastha must clearly understand the difference between body and soul in order to maintain his status of renunciation, and he should also perform austerities. The sannyasi should fully absorb his body, mind, and words in self realization. Having thus achieved equanimity of mind, he is the best well wisher of all living entities. Wow. Text 43. Brahmacharyam tapaso cham santoso buddha sovidam grihastas syapi rito gantu sarve samad upasanam. A householder may approach his wife for sex only at the time prescribed for begetting children. Otherwise, the householder should practice celibacy, austerity, cleanliness of mind and body, satisfaction in his natural position, and friendship toward all living entities. Worship of me, meaning Krishna, is to be practiced by all human beings, regardless of social or occupational divisions. That's very good. Krishna is all encompassing. He does not reject anyone who is serious about making spiritual advance. Purport. Sarve Samad Upasanam indicates that all followers of the Varnashrama system must worship Lord Krishna or risk falling down from their position. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.3, Na bhajanti avajanati stanad prasta patanti adha. Even though one may be advanced in the performance of Vedic rituals and customs, without worshiping the Supreme Lord, one will certainly fall down. Those in the householder ashrama are not authorized to enjoy life like pigs and dogs, freely exercising their sexual potency. A religious householder should approach his wife at the prescribed time and place and beget. Let's see. A religious householder should approach his wife at the prescribed time and place and beget a saintly child for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, it is specifically mentioned here that a householder must practice celibacy along with all of the other members of advanced human civilization. The word socham indicates the cleanliness of mind and body, or else freedom from attachment and repulsion. One who faithfully worships God as the supreme controller experiences santosha, full satisfaction in whatever situation the Lord arranges. By seeing Lord Krishna within everyone, one becomes Bhuta Surit, the wishing friend of all. Oh, very nice. The well-wishing friend of all. Text 44. One who worships me, meaning Krishna, by his prescribed duty, having no other object of worship, and who remains conscious of me as present in all living entities, achieves unflinching devotional service in me. Let me read that again because very important statement. One who worships me, meaning Krishna, by his prescribed duty, having no other object of worship, and who remains conscious of me as present in all living entities, achieves unflinching devotional service unto me. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. It is clearly explained in this verse that loving devotional service unto Lord Krishna is the ultimate goal of the entire Varnashrama system. Let's see, that's very nice. It is clearly explained in this verse that loving devotional service unto Lord Krishna is the ultimate goal of the entire Varnashrama system, which the Lord has been elaborately explaining. In any social or occupational division of human society must be a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and worship Him alone, or worship Krishna alone. Okay. The bona fide spiritual master is the representative of Lord Krishna. And worship of the Acharya goes directly to the lotus feet of the Lord. Although ordinary householders are sometimes ordered by Vedic injunctions to worship particular demigods or forefathers, one should remember that Lord Krishna is within all living entities. As stated here, Sarva Bhuteshu Madhava, the pure devotees of the Lord worship the Lord alone. Very important. And those who cannot come to the standard of pure devotional service should at least meditate upon the personality of Godhead within the demigods and all other living entities. Understanding that all religious processes are ultimately meant for the pleasure of the Lord. Okay, very important. In the course of missionary work, even pure devotees must deal with government, leaders, and other prominent members of society, sometimes praising such persons and complying with their orders. Yet, yet, because the devotees are always meditating on Lord Krishna, situated as the super soul within everyone. They are therefore acting for the Lord's pleasure and not for the pleasure of any ordinary human being. Those persons dealing with different demigods in the course of their Varnashrama duties should similarly see the Lord as the basis of everything. They should concentrate on pleasing the Supreme Lord by all activities. This stage of life is called love of God, and it brings one to the point of actual liberation. Wow, wonderful. So those persons dealing with different demigods in the course of their Varnashrama duties should similarly see the Lord as the basis of everything. They should concentrate on pleasing the Supreme Lord by all activities. This stage of life is called love of God, and it brings one to the point of actual liberation. Haribol. Text 45. My dear Uddhava, I am the Supreme Lord of all worlds, and I create and destroy this universe, being its ultimate cause. I am thus the absolute truth, and one who worships me with unfailing devotional service comes to me, Adipol. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, as described in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.11, Lord Krishna is understood in three features as impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, and ultimately the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Krishna, the rays, Sri Krishna, the source of everything. Lord Krishna absorbs the impersonal philosophers into the rays of his body, appears before the perfect yogi as the Lord of the heart, and ultimately brings his pure devotees back to his own abode for an eternal life of bliss and knowledge. Okay, well, everybody has a chance. Nobody is excluded. Text 46. Thus, one who has purified his existence by execution of his prescribed duties, who fully understands my supreme position, and who is endowed with scriptural and realized knowledge, very soon achieves me. Oh, very nice verse. Let me read that again. Thus, one who has purified his existence by execution of his prescribed duties, who fully understands my spiritual position, and who is endowed with spiritual and realized knowledge, very soon achieves me. Text 47. Those who are followers of this Varnashrama system accept religious principles according to authorized traditions of proper conduct. When such Varnashrama duties are dedicated to me in loving service, they award the supreme perfection of life. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. According to the Varnashrama system, the members of different orders and statuses of life have many traditional duties, such as worshiping the forefathers, to save them from possible sinful reactions. All such Vedic rituals, sacrifices, austerities, and so forth should be offered to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. They then become the transcendental means for going back home, back to Godhead. In other words, Krishna consciousness or loving service to Lord Krishna is the sum and substance of all progressive human life. Haribol. Text 48. My dear saintly Uddhava, I have now described to you, just as you inquired, and the means by which my devotee, perfectly engaged in his prescribed duty, can come back to me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the 11th canto, the 18th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Description of Varnashrama Dharma. Well, our takeaway for today thus, one who has purified his existence by execution of his prescribed duties, who fully understands my spiritual position, my supreme position, and who is endowed with scriptural and realized knowledge, very soon achieves me meaning Krishna. Amen. Those who are followers of this Varnashrama system accept religious principles according to authorized traditions of proper conduct. When such Varnashrama duties are dedicated to me in loving service, they award the supreme perfection of life. And finally, my dear saintly Uddhava, I have now described to you, just as you inquired, the means by which my devotee, perfectly engaged in his prescribed duty, can come back to me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Harivilas. Okay, are there any questions or comments? So our takeaway for today is those who are followers of this Varnashrama system accept religious principles according to authorized traditions of proper conduct. When such Varnashrama duties are dedicated to me in loving service, they award the supreme perfection of life. Wow, that's very nice. Very nice. In other words, let me read it again. Those who are followers of this Varnashrama system accept religious principles according to authorized traditions of proper conduct. When such Varnashrama duties are dedicated to me in loving service, they award the supreme perfection of life. Wow. Okay.
So I got a question.
Yeah.
It seems like there's more than one system of being within or performing devotional service. So like I used to work at the Gates Foundation.
Yeah.
I would do Mongol Arti, I'd then go to work, making some sort of money through external resources and then coming back and doing services and donating money. That seems to be Chaitanya's model and also possibly visible from the Gita perspective. Just do something and then give the results to Krishna. But then this is establishing a sense of a Vedic culture where everything is a lot more directly related to Krishna. But then it says devotional service is still the supreme method. Is straddling those two lines based on time, place, and circumstance, the Chaitanya model versus the Bhagavat model, where you have specific roles and you have specific duties and you have a whole group working at the same time in the same way.
It's both. It's both.
Because when I read these, I'm like, I definitely want that, but at the same time, I'm not fully in that system. I'm in an American system where we work for somebody else and we get some trickling of money that they give us and some resources that they give us, maybe a computer or like an Orca card for me. And this Varnashram system seems a lot more attractive because then I'm not in that system. I'm not dealing with people going to FIFA, going to major football games. I'm not dealing with all that external stuff. So there is a way to deal with both methods, and they're both fine, but the ultimate is still devotional service.
Okay, well, here it says those who are followers of this Varnashram system accept religious principles according to authorized traditions of proper conduct. When such Varnashrama duties are dedicated to me, meaning Krishna, in loving service, they award the supreme perfection of life. So that's a very clear statement. Okay, there are followers of the Varnashrama system, but they accept religious principles according to authorized traditions, proper conduct. They're not whimsical. They're not inventing their own so-called authorized, traditions. When such Varnashram duties are dedicated to me in loving service, they award the supreme perfection of life. So we should not go into tangential, uh, let's say, uh, personalities. Someone might influence us to uh, uh, follow them, but uh, those type of persons might mislead the devotee. So therefore it says here, the followers of this Varnashrama system accept religious principles according to authorized traditions of proper conduct. Very important statement. According to authorized traditions of proper conduct. When such Varnashrama duties are dedicated to me, meaning Krishna, in loving service, they award the supreme perfection of life. So that's what we're aiming at.
But we don't have to be like working in a Varnashram system directly in the sense that there's sannyasis doing their services. We got Kshatriyas doing their services that are thinking in a Vedic way. We can have police doing that and not thinking in a Vedic way, and there are Kshatriyas. We can have preachers or whatever in the sannyasi style way and not have the actual Vedic culture from beginning to end.
I mean, it's based on the time, place, circumstance, right?
Yeah, I still believe that, but
yeah.
like I'm trying to make sure we feel clear about this because I just heard a good chapter, and I'm like I like this, but I'm not.
I mean, this is the ideal society, like Prabhupada said, right? Like within a temple congregation, like the goal is to create such an environment. It's a micro environment.
Yeah.
Because the macro environment is not conducive yet, in Kali Yuga.
But is it worth striving for the macro environment? Because it sounds like it would be.
Prabhupada himself said, like, if we create perfect models within a small thing, and then they could potentially expand into the macro thing, right? But you can't boil the ocean on day one. So
no, I don't expect that. And I don't think that the time, place, and circumstances mean that we'll have it in my lifetime, but it seems like it would be a worthy goal to include everybody else into this system, and they see how much more comfortable it is, and then they get attracted to Krishna through just osmosis.
I mean, I think Maharaj, that's why, if I may speak, Maharaj, about like the why Maharaj gives the examples of the festivals.
Yeah.
So festivals is an example where large set of people come and see that these festivals are organized by a group of devotees working in perfect collaboration. Nobody is hankering for personal benefit. And then when they see that this is all being done in a happy, excited way, then they get attracted, right? And then they'll start inquiring about what is that you guys do, or what is the philosophy behind what you do. So then gradually they are exposed to Krishna.
So that should be part of our consciousness.
Yeah.
That we're preaching by behavior,
Exactly.
by example, and maybe people will be attracted, and the macro will be interested in the micro.
Yeah. Right, Maharaj?
Yeah. Yeah, in other words, it says here, it says, according to the Varnashrama system, the members of different orders and statuses of life have many traditional duties, such as worshiping the forefathers to save them from possible sinful reactions. All such Vedic rituals, sacrifices, austerities, and so forth should be offered to the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna. They then become the transcendental means for going back home, back to Godhead. In other words, Krishna consciousness or loving service to Lord Sri Krishna is the sum and substance of progressive human life. So if we get misled by, let's say, uh, uh, persons who are very flashy and promise to give us eternal life and so forth, we can be fooled and become a what you would call flunky of the uh, person who is flashy and is promising so much uh, possible things and so forth. However, if we simply uh, uh, engage in devotional service without any false purpose, without desire of sense gratification, without desire of uh, having notoriety, without desire of uh, demanding respect, and so forth. Uh, Therefore, we live a simple life. Simple living, high thinking is our motto. And we don't make things complicated. We keep everything simple and completely dedicated to pleasing Lord Krishna. Then it says here, uh, all such Vedic rituals, sacrifices, austerities, and so forth should be offered to the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna. They then become the transcendental means for going back home, back to Godhead. In other words, Krishna consciousness or loving service to Lord Krishna is the sum and substance of progressive human life. So we should not worship anybody else. We should not be sidetracked by any so-called, uh, you know, charismatic personalities. We should, as it says here, uh, let's see, according to one's own system, the members of different orders and statuses of life may have traditional duties, such as worshiping the forefathers to save them from possible sinful reactions. All such Vedic rituals and sacrifices, austerities, and so forth should be offered to the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna. Well, there are uh, people who don't offer everything to the Supreme Lord. They have other uh, personalities that they offer their homage to. Uh, so, you know, the mundaners, uh, they worship many different personalities or people or gods and mix up everything. So we should not be enamored by such, personalities. They might be very, powerful, good speakers or whatever, but they will ultimately uh, engage sometimes in unnecessary things and make things complicated to follow just to show that they are very advanced. And Prabhupada never did that. He made Krishna consciousness very simple and direct. And he did not try to, uh, in any way, uh, stop devotees or stop people from uh, being engaged in devotional service. He recommended devotional service in all means so that devotees can make uh, tangible spiritual advancement. So, therefore, it says here, according to the Varnashram system, the members of different orders and statuses of life have many traditional duties, such as worshiping the forefathers to save them from possible sinful reactions. All such Vedic rituals, sacrifices, austerities, and so forth should be offered to the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna. They then become the transcendental means for going back home, back to Godhead. In other words, Krishna consciousness or loving service to Lord Shri Krishna is the sum and substance of progressive human life. But you can meet people who are worshiping this God or this person or that person and completely not dedicated to Krishna. So we have to be very, very careful. There are so many religious, uh, you know, religious personalities and religious services that are existing today, but we should only be on the path of Krishna consciousness, which means direct dedication to Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and not be sidetracked by going to demigods or going to so-called personalities who are promising instant sannyasi or instant this or instant that. We should be satisfied with what Prabhupada is teaching us and follow him sincerely without deviating to other people. Yeah, there's so many charismatic people in the world, but that doesn't mean they are bona fide. The bona fide person is the one who's following Krishna consciousness seriously, as Prabhupada has taught us, and not be fooled by charismatic personalities who are promising so many things, but ultimately you end up being cheated. So therefore it says that according to the Varnashram system, the members of different orders and statuses of life have many traditional duties, such as worshiping the forefathers to save them from possible sinful reactions. All such Vedic rituals, sacrifices, austerities, and so forth should be offered to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, not other so-called uh, 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 so-called devotees or so-called charismatic people. Therefore, it's saying here that all such Vedic rituals, sacrifices, austerities, and so forth should be offered to the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna. Then, they then become the transcendental means for going back to Godhead. In other words, Krishna consciousness or loving service to Lord Krishna is the sum and substance of progressive human life. So you don't have to worship anyone else. You simply worship Krishna because that will lead you to the sum and substance of progressive human life, meaning you will continually make devotional service your main purpose in life, to serve all your spiritual master and serve in such a way that you are helping others understand their relationship with Krishna. In other words, Krishna consciousness or loving service to Lord Krishna is the sum and substance of progressive human life. You shouldn't follow anyone else who is promising so many different, let's say, achievements that you can have by following their speculated processes. We should be satisfied and completely dedicated to loving service to Lord Krishna, which is the sum and substance of progressive human life. You should not be fooled by other people that are promising you different things. We should be dedicated simply by Krishna consciousness or loving service to Lord Krishna, which is the sum and substance of progressive human life. Haribol.
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay. Therefore, my dear saintly Uddhava, I have now described to you, just as you inquired, the means by which my devotee, perfectly engaged in his prescribed duty, can come back to me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of the divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the 11th canto, 18th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Description of Varnashram Dharma. You see, that's very, very profound statement because every day we're reading, twice a day, from Prabhupada's teachings. Now, what are Prabhupada's teachings? He's simply following the genuine devotees, and it's not manufacturing new things or on things that are not not Krishna conscious. He's simply following the bona fide process of devotional service and helping all of us to make spiritual advancement by simple chanting, dancing, and feasting, and following the bona fide what do you call them, devotees in the history of the Varnashram system. Okay, so here it says, those who are followers of this Varnashram system accept religious principles according to authorized traditions of proper conduct. When such Varnashram duties are dedicated to me, meaning Krishna, in loving service, they award the supreme perfection of life. Now, if You can go around the world and you'll find many, many different personalities, many, many different ways of worship. That doesn't mean that they're all bona fide. In fact, most are not bona fide. We have to be dedicated in loving service of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not other personalities. And therefore, when the Varnashram duties are dedicated to Krishna in loving service, they award the supreme perfection of life. So we shouldn't seek anything else. Here it is very clear that if we follow the Varnashrama duties dedicated to Krishna in loving service, then one will be awarded the supreme perfection of life. And in the purport, it says, according to the Varnashram system, the members of different orders and statuses of life have many traditional duties, such as worshiping the forefathers to save them from possible sinful reactions. All such Vedic rituals, sacrifices, austerities, and so forth should be offered to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, not to the lotus feet of this guru or that guru or this thing or that thing. Everything should be offered to the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna. They then become the transcendental means for going back to home, back to Godhead. In other words, Krishna consciousness or loving service to Lord Shri Krishna is the sum and substance of progressive human life. That means progressive human life means you are continually making more and more Krishna conscious knowledge and service and surrender by following Srila Prabhupada's instructions. Okay, so then, my dear saintly Uddhava, I have now described to you, just as you inquired, the means by which my devotee, perfectly engaged in his prescribed duty, can come back to me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of the divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the 11th canto, 18th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Description of Varnashrama Dharma. So, if any charismatic person comes into the orbit of your life, if that person is not completely surrendered to Prabhupada and follows strictly Prabhupada's instructions, you should not be fooled by such persons. Even though they're charismatic, even though they promise so many things, we should remain in simple practice of Krishna consciousness, chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, eating only Krishna Prasadam, and engaging in devotional service without any material purpose to achieve. Haribol.
Haribol. I think the next chapter is also very going to be exciting, because that is that's for tomorrow, but the perfection of spiritual knowledge.
There are many charismatic persons in the world, there's no doubt about it. But that doesn't mean they're all pure devotees. Srila Prabhupada never misled anyone. His whole purpose was to glorify Lord Krishna, not to glorify himself. Therefore, you'll see that those charismatic persons that collect a whole number of so-called devotees But they're not worshiping Krishna. They're worshiping that person, that so-called charismatic person who has duped them to think that he is the absolute truth. The absolute truth is the Vaishnava program of complete surrender to Krishna. We don't surrender to anybody else. We surrender only to Krishna under the tutelage of bona fide devotees. That is our life. Therefore, it says here, Krishna consciousness or loving service to Lord Sri Krishna is the sum and substance of progressive human life. That is our real takeaway for today and forever. In other words, Krishna consciousness or loving service to Lord Sri Krishna is the sum and substance of progressive human life. So we don't need anything else. We don't need anybody else's charismatic promises. We should simply be Krishna conscious or loving service to Lord Sri Krishna as the sum and substance of progressive human life. So maybe we should write that out on a little piece of paper and look at it every day. Krishna consciousness or loving service to Lord Sri Krishna is the sum and substance of progressive human life. That means we don't need anything else. We simply have to surrender to Krishna and work honestly in Krishna consciousness. Haribol. Any questions or comments? Questions?
Did you get your question?
Oh, I understood it right away.
Yeah.
Like I was asking for the benefit of the class.
Good.
I wasn't asking because I had that deeper question, but it was relevant to the class.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments or questions online? Okay. So we can wrap it up, Maharaj. So we'll regroup again in the evening.
Haribol.
Hare
All
Krishna,
glories to
Hare
Srila
Krishna,
Prabhupada.
Krishna Krishna,
Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So let's see, Maharaj. I'll just mention the names of the people that have joined online. It's I'm just going by the list order here. Devanath Hari Prabhu, Anya Mataji, Adidev Prabhu, Chaitanya Mataji. We have iPhone 17 Pro Mataji as Prabhu. I don't know. Maybe next time.
Sita Devi Dasi Mataji.
Who's that? Mataji?
Sita Devi Dasi Prabhuji.
Oh, Hare Krishna.
Sumita. Yeah.
Sumita Mataji. And then we have Jai Radha Mataji. Then we have Jai Shri. We have, is that Pik Prabhu? That's yours, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's you. And then we have, is it Madhurya Mimi Mataji? What's the fully initiated name?
Madhav Priya.
Madhava Priya. Madhava Priya.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yes. And then we have Shrinika Mataji. Then we have Shyamukunda Mataji. Then we have Sridevi Mataji. What's again your initiated name? If you're on.
Prabhu, Sri Vishnu Priya.
Sri Vishnu Priya Mataji. And then we have Lakshmi Mataji. And we have Uddhava Prabhu. So we're talking about Lord Krishna talking to Uddhava. So we have Uddhava Prabhu. And then Vidyanath Prabhu. And then Nand Maharaj Prabhu. So those are all the
You
parts.
forgot me, Prabhuji.
Who else did I miss, Mataji?
Namakirti.
Oh yeah, Namakirti Mataji also is there.
Wow.
Yes. So those are all the participants. Thank you all. Hare Krishna.
All glories to Sri